I never meant for him to keep it. It was just a leaf, golden red and perfect, caught mid-fall on an October afternoon when the world felt painted in amber light. We were walking through the park near campus, arguing about something stupid, probably whether Dostoevsky was overrated or if I just hadn't understood the brothers Karamazov properly. Marcus had this way of tilting his head when he thought he was right, this small smile playing at the corner of his mouth that made me want to prove him wrong just to see that smile break into a full grin. I plucked the leaf from the air and threw it at his chest. Not hard, just a gentle toss, the kind of casual touch that friends share without thinking. He caught it against his sweater, this cream-colored thing that made his brown skin look warm even in the cooling autumn air. He looked down at the leaf, then at me, and something shifted in his expression. Something I didn't understand then, couldn't let myself understand. That was 3 years ago. I didn't know he'd kept it until last month, pressed between the pages of his grandmother's Bible, the one with the worn leather cover and gold-edged pages that he'd inherited after she passed. I didn't know a lot of things about Marcus, it turns out. Didn't know how long he'd been waiting. Didn't know how many small moments I'd missed, too caught up in my own fear to see what was right in front of me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the beginning, to the real beginning, not just the leaf, but to the first day I met Marcus Chen in our sophomore year fiction workshop. He walked in late, which I later learned was completely out of character for him. Professor Whitmore was mid-sentence about the importance of showing versus telling when the door opened and Marcus slipped in, apologizing quietly, finding the only empty seat which happened to be right next to me. He smelled like coffee and something else, something clean like rain or fresh laundry. He pulled out a battered notebook, the kind with the cardboard cover that's been reinforced with packing tape, and I remember thinking that said something about him, about someone who valued function over appearance. We didn't speak that first class. But the next week, Whitmore paired us up for a peer review exercise, and I read Marcus's short story about a boy learning to swim in a river while his father watched from the shore, never helping, never interfering, just present. The story gutted me. There was something in the way Marcus wrote about the boy's determination, about the father's quiet faith, that felt so honest, it hurt. When I told him that, Marcus looked at me with these eyes that seemed to see more than I was saying. Dark eyes, almost black, with this intensity that made me nervous in a way I couldn't name. He said, "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." And I hadn't even shared my work with him yet, hadn't done anything to earn that kind of respect, but there it was. We became friends the way college students do, through proximity and shared interests and late nights in the library. Marcus was studying English like me, but he was also taking theology classes, working through questions about faith and identity that I found fascinating, even though I'd grown up in a household where religion was something other people did. His grandmother had raised him, he told me, after his parents died in a car accident when he was 7. She'd been a woman of deep faith, the kind who saw God's hand in everything, who believed in grace and redemption and love as a radical act. Marcus carried that with him, that sense of searching for something larger than himself. We'd sit in the campus coffee shop, the one with the mismatched furniture and terrible acoustic music on Thursday nights, and he'd tell me about the conflicts he felt, about growing up in a church that taught him certain things about who he was supposed to be, about who he was allowed to love. And I'd listen, offering what comfort I could, never quite admitting to him or to myself why his struggles resonated so deeply with my own unexamined fears. I dated girls through college. Not seriously, but enough to maintain the appearance of normalcy, whatever that meant. There was Jennifer junior year, who liked indie films and made elaborate charcuterie boards. There was Amy senior year, who was brilliant and kind and deserved better than someone who was only half present in the relationship. I told myself I was just focused on my studies, on my writing, on building a future. I told myself a lot of things. Marcus never dated anyone as far as I knew. He'd deflect when friends tried to set him up, would smile and change the subject when the conversation turned to relationships. I thought maybe he was just private, or maybe still processing his grief, or maybe, like he'd sometimes hint, trying to reconcile his faith with desires that his grandmother's church had taught him were wrong. We graduated and stayed in the same city, both of us landing jobs that paid the bills while we worked on our real writing. I got a position at a marketing firm, writing copy for campaigns I didn't care about. Marcus started teaching English at a high school in a neighborhood that reminded him of where he'd grown up. We'd meet for dinner every couple of weeks, maintaining the friendship even as adult life tried to pull us in different directions. The leaf happened in the October of that first year after graduation. We were both feeling unmoored, I think, missing the structure of school, the clear sense of purpose. We'd fallen into the habit of these long walks through the park, talking about the books we were reading, the stories we were trying to write, the strange experience of realizing that this was it. This was adult life, and it looked nothing like what we'd imagined. I was seeing someone at the time, a woman named Claire, who worked in finance and had her life together in ways that made me feel inadequate. She wanted to know where our relationship was going. She wanted commitment, clarity, a future she could point to. And I couldn't give her that because I didn't know what I wanted, only what I was afraid of. Marcus listened to me talk about Claire that afternoon, his hands shoved in his jacket pockets, his breath visible in the cooling air. He asked gentle questions, never judging, always trying to understand. And then I saw the leaf, this perfect specimen of autumn, spiraling down from a maple tree, and something in me just wanted to break the tension, to return to the easy playfulness we used to have. So I caught it and threw it at him, and he caught it and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, something tender and sad and hopeful all at once. He slipped the leaf into his jacket pocket, and I thought nothing of it. Just a moment, just a gesture, just the kind of thing friends do. I broke up with Claire 2 weeks later. She took it better than I deserved, told me she'd suspected I wasn't fully invested, wished me well. I felt relief and guilt in equal measure, and I didn't call Marcus to tell him about it. I didn't want to examine why. The years passed. I dated other women, relationships that lasted months instead of weeks, but never quite took root. Marcus and I maintained our friendship, though something had shifted, some subtle change in the way he looked at me sometimes, in the careful distance he'd maintain. He was still warm, still present, but there was a guardedness that hadn't been there before. He started attending a different church, one that had a rainbow flag outside and a sign that said, "All are welcome." He told me about it over coffee one morning, his hands wrapped around his mug, his voice quiet but steady. "I'm gay," he said, like it was both the hardest and easiest thing he'd ever admitted. "I've known for a long time. I'm done pretending otherwise." I hugged him, told him I was proud of him, meant it completely, and I still didn't examine the feeling in my chest, the way something in me resonated with his words, like a tuning fork struck in a silent room. He started dating someone that spring, a guy named David, who taught history at his school. I met them for drinks once, saw the way David looked at Marcus with obvious affection, the way Marcus smiled, but somehow never fully relaxed. They dated for 6 months before Marcus ended it. It wasn't right, he told me, and didn't elaborate. I was single by then, had been for almost a year. I'd stopped trying to force relationships that didn't fit, but I hadn't started asking myself why they didn't fit. I was 31 years old and still living like I was waiting for my real life to begin. Then came last month. Marcus called me on a Tuesday evening, his voice strange, tight. His grandmother's house was being sold, the last step in settling her estate, and he needed help going through her things. Could I come over that weekend? Of course, I said, of course. His grandmother's house was a small bungalow in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but maintained its dignity. Inside, it smelled like old books and lavender, and every surface held some evidence of a life well lived. Photographs in mismatched frames, a collection of ceramic angels, shelves full of books with cracked spines, and margin notes in faded pencil. We worked in comfortable silence mostly, packing things for donation, setting aside items Marcus wanted to keep. In the bedroom, we found her Bible on the nightstand, the leather cover soft with age. Marcus picked it up carefully, reverently, and opened it. The leaf fell out, pressed flat, its colors faded but still visible. My leaf, the one I'd thrown at him 3 years ago. Marcus stared at it, then at me, and something broke in his expression. "She knew," he said quietly. "I pressed it in here the day you threw it at me, and she found it a week later. Asked me about it. I told her everything, about you, about how I felt." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Marcus." "She told me to be patient," he continued, his voice thick. She said that some people take longer to find their way home, that love is patient and kind and keeps no record of wrongs. That's from Corinthians. She'd quote it to me and look at me with these knowing eyes, and I'd want to believe her, but I also didn't want to spend my life waiting for something that might never happen. I couldn't speak. All those years, all those moments I'd dismissed or ignored or explained away, they were crashing over me like waves, the way my heart would lift when I saw him, the way I measured other relationships against our friendship and found them wanting, the way I'd felt hollowed out during the months he was with David, an ache I'd attributed to missing my friend, without asking why I missed him quite so much. I kept it because it felt like the only piece of you I could have, Marcus said, still holding the leaf. You threw it at me so carelessly, just playing around, and I caught it and thought, this is what it feels like. This is what it's like when he touches me, even indirectly. And I knew I was pathetic, but I kept it anyway. You're not pathetic, I managed. Marcus, you're not... I've been in love with you since that first workshop class, he said, and the words hung in the air between us. Since before I had words for what that meant, since before I was brave enough to admit what I was. And I've watched you date woman after woman, and I've been your friend because that's what you needed, and I told myself it was enough. But it's not. It hasn't been for a long time. The room felt too small, too full of the past and the present colliding. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, at the man he'd become. The boy who'd written about learning to swim had grown into someone who'd learned to live authentically despite the cost. He'd done the work I'd been too afraid to do. I think I've been lying to myself, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. For years, maybe my whole life. Marcus waited, patient even now, even after everything. When you told me you were gay, something in me recognized it, like you were speaking a truth I couldn't admit. And when you dated David, I was jealous. Not because I wanted you to be alone, but because I wanted... I stopped, forced myself to say it. I wanted to be the one you looked at like that. Then why didn't you say anything? His voice was gentle, not accusing, just seeking to understand. Because I was scared. Because it meant admitting I'd been wrong about myself. Because it felt easier to keep living a half-life than to risk everything for a truth I wasn't ready to face. The words were tumbling out now, years of repression cracking open. But I'm tired, Marcus. I'm so tired of pretending, of dating people I can't fully love, because I'm too afraid to love the person I actually want. And who do you want? He asked, though I could see in his eyes that he already knew, had always known. You, I said. I want you. I think I've always wanted you. I just couldn't let myself see it. Marcus closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were bright with tears. I need you to be sure. I can't be another experiment, another thing you try on and discard when it gets too real. I've loved you too long to survive that. I'm not sure about anything except this, I said, stepping closer to him. Except that when I think about my future, you're in it. Not as my friend, though I hope you'll always be that too, but as more, as everything. And I'm terrified because I don't know how to do this, don't know how to be what you need, but I want to learn. If you'll let me, if I haven't waited too long. He was crying now, silent tears tracking down his face, and he held up the faded leaf between us. You threw this at me like it was nothing, like you didn't know it would become everything. I know now, I said. I'm sorry it took me so long. Marcus set the Bible down carefully on the nightstand, the leaf still in his other hand. He looked at me with all that patience, all that grace his grandmother had taught him, all that love he'd been carrying for years. So, what happens now? Now I kiss you, I said. If that's okay. If you still want... He kissed me first, cutting off my nervous rambling, and it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been but always belonged. His lips were soft, tentative, like he was afraid I might pull away. But I didn't pull away. I leaned in, wrapped my arms around him, and kissed him back, with all the feeling I'd been suppressing for years. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, Marcus laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. I can't believe we're doing this in my dead grandmother's bedroom. She'd probably approve, I said. She told you to be patient, didn't she? She knew. She always knew everything, Marcus agreed. She would have liked seeing this, seeing us. We spent the rest of the day finishing with the house, but everything felt different now, charged with possibility. We held hands while we worked. We kissed between boxes. We talked about what came next, about taking things slow but not hiding, about me finally being honest with myself and with the world. That night, back at Marcus's apartment, we lay on his couch and talked until the early hours of morning. About all the moments we'd missed, all the signals I'd been too afraid to see. About his years of quiet hoping and my years of determined denial. About his grandmother's faith and how love, real love, was always worth the risk. I'm going to mess this up sometimes, I warned him. I'm new at this, at being honest about who I am. We'll mess it up together, Marcus said, his head on my shoulder. That's what love is, choosing someone and choosing them again, even when it's hard. The leaf is framed now, hanging on the wall in our apartment. We moved in together 3 months ago, took that leap together. It's still faded, still pressed flat, but it means something different now. Not a symbol of unrequited love, but a reminder of how something small and carelessly given can become precious when held by the right person. I'm out now, to my family and friends and co-workers. It's been harder than I expected, and easier than I feared. My mother cried, not from disappointment, but from relief that I'd finally stopped running from myself. My friends said they'd wondered, had been waiting for me to figure it out. And Marcus has been there through all of it, patient and steady, loving me through the messy process of becoming who I was always meant to be. We still take walks through that park, still argue about literature and life and everything in between. But now I can reach for his hand without fear. Now I can kiss him under the autumn trees and call it what it is, love. Now when leaves fall around us in shades of gold and crimson, I catch them and give them to him, and he presses them in books, and we both understand the weight of small gestures, the power of patience, the grace of being known. His grandmother was right. Some people take longer to find their way home, but home was always there, waiting in the form of a boy who kept a leaf pressed in his Bible, who loved me long before I was brave enough to love him back.